So we looked at Four Lost Battles, which was the first in the OSG Library of Napoleonic Battles series, which I didn't realize when I popped it open was mostly punched. I think the rest of these are unpunched. The Coming Storm may have had some counters punched out. Again, I bought all these used, so some were punched, or Four Lost Battles was punched, and I think this had some punched, but I think an extra set of counter sheets in it. This one is the Battles from the Fourth Coalition, which is October 1806 to June 1807. You've got Jena, Auerstadt, Pultusk, Eylau, and Friedland. Again, actually stick with the back. This one, yeah, more the same, very wordy. Back of the box with, as per usual, there's a map showing the area of where most of the battles are fought, and then your typical info showing components, number of players, etc. Cover of the box looks very similar to Four Lost Battles. Similar kind of font here, slightly different color. Four Lost Battles is green. This is more of a kind of aqua blue color. And then images from each of the four battles that are presented. Although, you know, who knows if that's really an image from Pultusk. Lesser known battles, maybe not a lot of artwork for those particular battles. Here's the decks of cards. You got your French and your coalition cards. Still in shrink. So the rules, and you can see here, whereas the last one, I believe the rule book had the battles from the actual quad, Four Lost Battles. Here you can see they've turned it into a Library of Napoleonic Battles general rule book that lists the other games in the series. And obviously, as seen in the Four Lost Battles video, the modern rulebook, or the current rulebook, is even less specific. In this case, just being a Library of Napoleonic Battles series rules. So, some changes to the rulebooks over the years. And again, the rules are, and then there's the study folder for this particular game in the series. And again, they use the term study folder to describe a rulebook. And this has the older formatting, like I pointed out in the other video. The rulebooks now look like, in terms of formatting, look almost identical to GMT rulebooks, which some people may or may not like. But again, these are not very complex rules, not very long. Maybe 20 pages of rules. Alright, a little bit more, so let's go further than that. That's actually, here, this goes out to 26 pages of rules, but I feel like the current iteration of the rules is actually less than that. Yeah. The most recent version of the rules only goes a little over 22 pages, so, or a little over 21 pages actually. It's sort of 21 and a half pages, so looks like there may have been some rules bloat that was removed as the series evolved. So rulebook's getting smaller. I'm always in favor of that. Here we've got the study folder for this particular game, covering all of your different elements of the battle. One thing that I like about this particular series is that each battle has two versions that you can play. You can play the day of battle scenario, which is, hey, here's where all the units started at the point where hostilities basically commenced for that particular battle, for what was considered historically that particular battle. So you can set it up that way, which is just a classic tactical battle setup, or you can do what's called the approach to battle setup, which gives you the ability to maneuver your forces a lot more, and in in many cases, given the size of these maps compared to the historical position of a particular battle, allows you to, in a sense, even choose your own ground. You can fight really wherever you want within the confines of the map to wherever you can maneuver in that approach to battle maneuver capability. So, like what I've got going on with Brienne here from La Patrie en Danger is I'm doing the approach to battle scenario here, and you can see on the map Brienne is right there, and the battle was fought mostly right in around Brienne, but you can see there's a lot more room to deal with here. And in fact, historically, Blucher was trying to get these forces that ended up fighting around Brienne down this road here to link up with this was that 11th Corps? Yeah. The Prussian 11th Corps around Lahn, or I think it's Tran, actually. And he was unable to do that, so they ended up fighting up closer to Brienne. Well, in this particular battle scenario, you could do the historic setup around Brienne, but I did the approach to battle setup where the French weren't on the board yet at the start of the game. They've since, I'm on about turn 3 or 4 now, so the French have started assembling here outside of Brienne. But you could actually move a lot of these guys, and in that one case, that's what I did. I actually moved the Russian cavalry corps down here south. They started up north of the city of Brienne, and I actually moved them down south in order to intercept French reinforcements that will be coming on down this road here on this side of the map. So you get this wide area to work with, and so in a way, it creates an operational feel to the game, even though you're doing a tactical scenario. So, which I really like, because it's not something as wide in scale as, say, like the great campaigns of the American Civil War, where you've got a very wide area that you're dealing with, and you're really dealing with army or corps movements. Here you're dealing with divisional movements, brigade movements, which makes for a smaller scale, for tactical engagements than something like great campaigns of the Civil War. But it allows you to still have some of that feeling of maneuver, that you're not pinned into, okay, here's all the combat lines that everybody's in at the start of the battle, go within that historic confined space. Now you've got a little room to move around on these maps, and in some cases, I know on the new Napoleon's Last Gamble, you actually have the capability to expand the maps even more, so to provide even more of that maneuver room. So I'll be curious to see if the other battles in in this particular quad will offer that same level of space to work with. So one of the nice things I think that I've learned about this system so far is that option for each battle to have that approach to battle that can even give you an extra day or two sometimes to actually fight out a battle, as opposed to just the strictly historical setup. So that's been nice. And of course, the series well known for the fantastic historical notes that Kevin Zucker provides for these games. So you can see here just pages and pages of historical notes, almost half of the playbook, or study folder as it's called. Card rules. Every game has the card rules added as an addendum. I've been playing with the cards in La Patrie en Danger, and I'm enjoying it so far. Victory worksheet, so you can keep track of all those victory points laid out for each battle. And these kind of things are just on sheets, so you can photocopy them. Abbreviated sequence of play, just a one sheet. It does have orders slips on the back. And I'm not sure about... Okay, so this is for march orders. When I see orders slips, it makes me think of something like the Civil War Brigade series, or the Line of Battle series, where you're doing written orders. But it means actually march orders, which is you can take units that come on as reinforcements and give them march orders, which is essentially assigning them an objective hex that they have to reach. And so as long as they're under those march orders and have these objective hexes to reach, they don't need to make command rolls or be in command of their commanding officer. Because generally when reinforcements are coming on, they're far, far away from the units that they're, or in many cases they may be far, far away from the units that they're supposed to report to, or that they're, where their overall commander is. And so being out of range, they'd have to constantly be making initiative rolls to see if they can move, and it's obviously not realistic to say that they would just stop in the middle on the way of marching towards a engagement. So that's a nice little thing that you can do in the game, which is have march orders for units that you want to have join a particular part of the battlefield. Something else that's common for all these games is update sheets like this. And this one is a little confusing to me because it says the Coming Storm update for use with update kit, including new rules folder, study folder, casualty record, turn record, card rules, and combat tables folder. I know some of these games you can buy update kits like this that OSG has released after the fact. I'm just not entirely sure if all this stuff, if somebody bought the update kit, swapped out the old rules and study folder for the new one in this particular copy that I bought, or what, because there wasn't a way to tell in the manuals of whether these were newer versions, at least not that I could see in my initial glance. I might have missed it. So I'm not sure if this is a version of the game that has the update kit included and has swapped out the older version for the newer, but this is the first I've seen of an update kit inclusion in these, and I think the only one that has this. So this is in cardstock, so it must have shipped in on a Ziploc or something, the new manuals and things. So may or may not have been included. I'm not sure. There's not a good way to tell. Like the other games in the series, it's got individual turn record tracks. Actually, that's not an individual battle turn record track. That is an overall turn record track. Other games in the series will end up using. Here you can see they've got the battles broken out specifically across the top here. Other games in the series will use an individual card turn record track for each battle. But this is still like Four Lost Battles before it is still using an overall turn record track for all the battles. Casualty record track, and this one has French and Coalition on the same sheet as opposed to on the same card, as opposed to two different cards for each army, which later iterations of the series will also do. This is the same though, the various holding boxes for each side, and there's sort of a dotted line here saying, hey, you could actually cut this in half. I'm not sure I'm going to do that, but this is like two identical things, one for each side. And the weather chart. And again, these games, despite what I consider a very simple rules set, or fairly simple rules set, have a ton of content in them in terms of cards and charts and tables and things like that. So, which I like. You know, you're getting value for your money there to get lots of nice cardstock inserts. So there's the combat tables, and this is another thing that each game seems to do, is have a double-sided card that has the CRT on it, and then also have a sheet, a fold-over sheet, that has the same thing, CRT on one side, notes to the CRT on the other side, and then have your terrain effects chart, in this case broken down into TEC for combat, as well as then your different die roll tables and things like that. And then on the back, your overall TEC for movement, which I think is on the back of, maybe it's on the back of the rules too. I think one of these had, yeah. On the back of the series rules, you've also got your TEC for movement. And then here we go with the counter sheets. And again, nice consistency in the Library of Napoleonic Battles series, and then all the counters look the same. There's been no significant graphical overhaul of the counters. So the French counters are always going to look like this. They'll be blue, various shades of blue, with colored stripes across the top to indicate the core affiliation. So it's nice. It makes it, to have that sort of consistency from game to game in the series is very nice in terms of just picking any one up and immediately being familiar with the counters and recognizing. And I think, yeah, the counter artwork is a couple of good old standbys in the biz, Charlie Keebler and Mark Simonich. These guys, I think it's Kibler. Recognizable name, not sure how to pronounce it. But like the Out of Command, you'll see these crop up. That looks exactly like the Out of Command counters in like the Flying Colors series from GMT. So just little things here and there. You'll notice they get carried over from publisher to publisher and series to series. So again, very attractive counters, I think. For a Napoleonic era game, they're pretty functional and not overly garish. They have that kind of graduated shading on them that kind of irks some people. I'm not particularly bothered by it if it's done in a unobtrusive way. I don't think it's very distracting here in terms of being able to read the counters, or doesn't detract from their functionality. I think the biggest complaint would be for aesthetic reasons. It makes them look a little computery or computer generated, which would be my only complaint. Then in the back you'll see a lot, since this is a hidden movement game, you'll see a lot of the various army symbols, which you can use to disguise the force composition of your various forces on the board. So that's the counters. For maps, this has 4 maps. Yep. So 4 map sheets. Some other games in the series only have 3, and they'll kind of double them up because sometimes the maps are small enough that you can get on a typical, 22 by 34 map sheet. You can get 2 maps, sort of one on each side of a map sheet. But in this case, it looks like here, Friedland, this is Friedland here, this is the fourth map, and this uses the whole map. So this is bigger than I've seen so far for one of these tactical games, to actually use the whole map as opposed to just half of this size, which is, you compare it to something like Brienne here, that's just a half of one of these full-size maps. And so this looks much like the artwork in Four Lost Battles, again much more yellow than the more modern one from La Patrie en Danger here. And I think the map artwork on here, yeah, Charles Kibler again. Whereas on these older ones, I believe it is Joe Youst. Yep. So a little different. Overall the style of these looks the same. Just a little minor change, minor difference in graphics here. I would argue that these older ones look a little bit plainer, which is sort of in keeping with what I'm familiar with Joe Youst's map graphics. His are usually what I would call plain, very functional, usually very easy to read. I've never had any issues with, he doesn't have the Mahaffey syndrome of making a map that's so aesthetically messy that it wrecks all functionality for it. Mahaffey's probably one of the best known for having, good looking, although not always, but usually supremely non-functional maps. So here we have the map for Eylau. This looks like it's another one. Yep. That takes up the whole sheet. fold these one-handed. And again, more the same, these sort of yellowy looking maps. Lots of lakes and streams on Islao here. And I thought Islao was fought in the winter, yeah, during February. So it looks like they didn't make the aesthetic choice to make the map look snowy. You know, some games will do that, as opposed to just a plain sort of color neutral map. They'll actually make a seasonal map, which is sometimes cool if it's done well. If it's not done well, it can be, very disruptive and in terms of functionality and gameplay. So it looks like Islao and Friedland, two big battles, understandably have large maps. For the others, it looks like it's more of the same, though. Looks like all these battles have these large, full-size maps. So this is Pultusk, a battle which I'm not familiar with at all. But there is the city for which it is named way on one side of the map. So, and again, maps this big, like I was talking, that ability to maneuver before a particular battle is fought, that's going to be kind of nice. The amount of maneuver that you'll have on some of these big maps before a battle is fought will be pretty nice. So we'll see if the Jena was also a pretty large battle. Same thing, this is going to be a full-size sheet here for Jena. And again, wow, lots of open space right in the middle there on that one. Just some ridgeline forests and stuff kind of gathered around the edges. But again, these are not, the yellow look to them gives them sort of an antique kind of look, I guess, so maybe a little more period look. But when you get close, they're not particularly, in terms of their, the fonts used and the symbols and stuff used, not particularly period, or not really an attempt to make it look particularly period, the way, say, the Vive l'Empereur system, Quattro Battaglia Spagna, which makes the maps are this really sort of golden sepia toned, with this real flowing script on them, cursive script and things, look very period, Napoleonic period maps. These are very, very functional, not particularly period evocative maps, except for the yellow sort of parchment look to them. You got your appropriately flowy, scripty font here for the battles, describing each of the battles, but otherwise, in terms of fonts and things on the maps themselves, not a particularly period evocative style. So that are all the maps and contents for the coming storm. After this is the last success, and this is something else that I'll look at once I've gone through all of them, is that the box design changing in terms of the font style switching over, and the graphic design on the front of the box is changing over too, as the series progresses. The last success will be the last one that utilizes the 4-image quad style box front on it. So I'll address that in future videos.